my name, get my current name, date and time, the app name, and then grab the exception string, okay, and then basically do my command object execute non-query, and I've now recorded that information in SQL Server. Now, not only am I seeing it here, right, but later on I can then bring up SQL. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Being able to specify that and put it into a SQL Server database for later. Okay. So the next thing then is, if you notice, I'm sorry, let me open that one more time. One of the things you may have noticed here is that the form name and the app name were not filled in. Okay, that's because the name value got passed, but it was blank. There wasn't anything in it. I hadn't created it yet. Okay, so let's go out and create this now. I've got another sample here. Let me find this one. Okay. Oh, shoot. Hello. Where am I? Yeah, here we go. Sorry, I meant to set a breakpoint here. Let me run this again. I want to set a breakpoint there. Thought I had that set up. Okay, so in this case, what I want to do is add on the form name and the app name. So what I did is I wrote a little routine here called eminfo.additionalinfo. And what this guy does is he simply dims a new instance of a name value collection object, fills in the form name that I pass and the application name that I pass. I just pass these in for my application. And I build up this name value collection and return that so that I can then pass that through, okay, to my exception manager. The exception manager.publish will accept the exception object and a name value collection. And then it just passes that through to all of the publishers so that I can then grab out of it whatever I want. In this case, I wanted to pass in my form name, okay, and the name of the application that it built. So now when I come into my exception publisher, I can now grab the form name and the app name. It passed it all the way through. And now when I write this out to SQL Server, okay, now we can see those did get filled in. And you can add as many as you want, right? Add as many columns as you want, build up however many name value collections you want, and you're off and running. Okay. Yes, sir? No, I haven't. No. So there's something that was in the Java world that has a lot of these same features? Is that what it is? Or?
It's not exactly the same.
Okay.
That one is more focused on logging and exception management, but it has a lot of the same functions.
Okay. And somebody's porting that or has ported it to .NET now?
It's being ported under another open source project.
Oh, okay. Great. That'll be another probably application block then that we'll find somewhere else. So good. No, I hadn't heard of that one. Thank you. All right. The other one I wrote here, which I can't really run right here because I don't have like an SMTP server running right now, but that's one that publishes to email. So in this particular case, I'm going to, again, implement an iException publisher, create a publish method. Okay. In this case, now I've got some additional information as usual, but remember I added some additional settings in my config settings, in the app config. Right? I said I wanted a from email, a to email, a subject, and the SMTP server. So in this class, I simply retrieve each of those items. So I know who to send it to, where it came from, the subject. You know, I could put, hey, an error occurred in this application or whatever. All right, pretty simple. Now, this one's really simple. It only sends to one email address, but you could make like a comma delimited list here, couldn't you, of who to send it to. And you could send it to multiple people. That'd be very simple to implement. Okay, once you've got that information, now it's just a simple matter to use the SMTP mail object, okay, and set the SMTP server to the SMTP server address, and then SMTP mail.send. This is all built right into .NET, okay. It's part of the the system.web.mail namespace. This is where you find the SMTP, excuse me, SMTP mail object. Okay, it's part of that system.web.mail namespace. Pretty simple to do. Yes, sir.
Where would you find the, or how would you get the procedure and the line number that the error occurred on?
How would you get the procedure and the line number? Well, it does come as a part of the stack trace. Yeah, it's in that stack trace. Okay?
That way you don't avoid filtering that out? You just,
I mean, you don't have to include the stack trace. I did. I actually made it a part of the 2-string. Okay? But you didn't have to do that. So if you don't want the stack trace, you could filter that out. I don't know a way to turn that off, no. But down in here, yeah, see like line 100 right there. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So now I wrote it so that I was using exception.toString, which gives you the error message plus the stack trace. You could just get the error message itself. Okay. Maybe that's what you log somewhere, and then maybe you send the full stack trace to somebody else. A lot of different ways. I mean, there's nothing to preclude me from sending 2 emails with different information. You know, so yeah. I'm starting to get.
Could you also send this off to the pager or a mobile phone?
Could you send it to a pager or a mobile phone? If you had the code that you could call out to send to those devices, you can call anything from here. I mean, this is just regular VB code, right? .NET code. So if you had some sort of like, hey, if you drop it in this directory, some service picks it up, you could write to a file to that directory. That would then pick it up and send it to your pager. Yeah, absolutely. All sorts of things. That way you can get paging going, right? So, I mean, you can do a lot of that through SQL Server as well, right? You could actually have it where you insert into our error log here. SQL Server could actually run the extended stored procedure XP send mail, right? And send it out that way as well. So, Howard?
How does the exception management object handle exceptions thrown by the publisher?
Good question. What would happen? The question is, I'm down here in my SQL guy here, right? And I have an error. I misspell something or whatever. I got an error in my error system. Okay? You know, what's going to happen? Well, basically what happens is the default publisher, okay, has the code in it that does the try and the catch. And it actually, when you're in the default publisher, is when it calls the other ones. So if you get an error in here, guess what? It's going to float up to the default publisher, and the default publisher is going to log it in the event log that there's an error in your error system. Okay? So yeah, they've handled that through the default publisher. Now, if you got it where the default publisher can't even write to the event log, well, then all bets are off. I mean, it's just going to fail. You know, that'll be a hard fail. So you'd have to figure that out. Then it's probably just going to throw it back to the .NET framework, and then at that point you're going to get a nice hard error message, aren't you? And so you want to make sure that you've got all of those ducks in a row before you do that. Okay. Yes, sir.
Are you aware of anybody who's already written some sort of log reader or log analyzer for this type of exception log?
A log analyzer for this?
I'm actually using this
Uh-huh.
to the event log. That would be nice to write to the next one.
No, I haven't heard of anything. Anybody else heard of anybody that's maybe kind of mining for this type of data? And so, no. Wouldn't be that hard to write. I mean, you know, just do some sort of OLAP thing, right? You know, through SQL. Yeah, Larry.
Keying off of his, this is a real one event.
The question is, he wants to leave out all error handling in his whole code, okay? And then have one class that everything just rolls up to, right? Like in a web page, it's real easy to do. You inherit from the base page class, okay, and override the onError method. And then in there, you can actually make the call to exception manager.publish, okay? That's fine. I mean, it works.
Price I pay for doing that specific catch. Everybody, you got to catch every exception.
Yeah. I mean, part of the reason why I would never do that is because there's a lot of times when I know when I'm in a piece of web code, okay, that I know what the error is that I'm going to get. I'm checking for that specific exception, and I know that I can sometimes handle that and fix it. I don't always want it to go to some generic handler. I want to be able to fix it right there. So that would be one reason why I might not do that. There is no performance penalty for doing a try and a catch. The performance penalty hits when you hit a catch, when you get an error. That's when it slows things down, right? So there's no penalty for putting in try and catches. It's only when you get the exception that you get a lot of overhead, basically. Okay? So it really comes down to, yeah, that is one way to do it, but it depends on, I'm in my app, and I want to know exactly where I came from, too. I want to know what method I came from, because that's another piece that I add to mine, is what method I was in. You know, yeah, I can get that through the stack, I like to have it a little bit more prominent. So there are things like that. I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but those would be some things why I wouldn't want to do it that way. Okay. Yeah. Right. The stack trace is always real nice, and we can get that anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. It just depends on, you know, how much do you want to do down there. Okay. It is easy.
And all of a sudden, all your air handling's taken care
It is easy, and you can do the same thing in Windows Forms, right? Because you can inherit from the base form class in Windows Forms as well.
Because it depends on your model. Do you just want to know about the error, or do you want to handle the error?
Right. It depends on your model. Do you want to know that it happened, or do you want to try to handle it yourself as well? Okay. And you might do a little of both, right? No reason you can't just do it.